Bam.
This is Boris Thuery, and you're watching the Break It Down show.
Hell yeah. This is awesome. Uh, Co-produced by my friend Teresa Rodriguez, who's in the green room. It's always wonderful to be able to talk about and do things with Teresa. And so this is another one of those great times. Just hey, Boris, thanks for coming on the show. This is neat. You've done a lot of international things, and so anytime I can click a country off or go back a country to a country virtually on the show is just remarkable. And actually, I'll be in France tomorrow as I'm traveling to England, and so I'm going via Paris. So I'll be in France, and then I'll be in where you're actually at in England. So it's a small world. Thanks for coming on the
I'm look-
show.
oh, you're most welcome, and thanks for the invite. I'm also looking forward to meet you properly in London.
Yeah, that'll be a good time. Where should we start this thing? I mean, you do amazing work. I'm going to put the links up for the for your organization here in a second. But where do you want to start? You want to ask me a question, or should I ask you one?
I think like start by asking me questions, and then I'll go with the flow as always and follow the lead.
How do you get used to going with the flow? I mean, you're an artist, so that's part of what you do, but that doesn't always make it easy. I think about like a band like Fishbone, great band, right? And they've always made the artist choice, and so they haven't been as big as maybe they might be because they're such artists. They kind of go towards that side as opposed to something that's more consumable and popular.
It's a very interesting question. I think at some point you may want to give your audience a bit of background on what I do and who I am, because otherwise it might be a bit all over the place. But going with the flow, answering your question, it's something that is very much part of my life, and I focus more and more as I age, I guess. When it comes to creativity, there's two different things. And you mentioned the band, sometimes you don't make it as big as you should. Going with the flow for me, it's a way to feel opportunities as well as not compromising. It goes both way. And that's maybe why sometimes you do amazing things and they might not be recognized as part of the big pictures, but it is a choice as well.
Yeah. When you think about big picture and what matters to you day to day, then what is that, and how do you meter that so that you stay grounded where you need to be?
I think it's very much linked with integrity.
Hmm.
Being able to actually be purely creative. And there's a massive difference as well, and we can talk about that later, between being an artist and being a designer, right? Being an artist, you can be selfless in your expression. You don't have a brief somehow. Otherwise, you can be Damien Hirst, which is more of a businessman in the art world, if that makes sense. Being a
Hmm.
designer, and especially when you have a team, you are accountable to an audience, you are accountable to your client, which is like completely different as well. Audience and client are two different things.
Hmm.
And it is a commercial brief as well. So it becomes a lot more complicated to keep integrity sometimes. So you need to actually make sure you work with the right people to start with. And for me, integrity as well come with not compromising on receiving respect that is due to my team.
Yeah, boy. Now you're talking about leadership. We've gone all the way from art to design to leadership in a
Yeah,
company.
it's interesting you said that because I started my life, I was more into art, I was more of an artist, painting and sculpting and being free in that sense. And ultimately, I came to the realization that I had to somehow make a living out of it. I was a bit more safe and secure, keeping creativity in my world, and trained in product design in France, moved to London, did my master, started my company, and then so on and so forth. And you kind of fall into different roles as you have to, and you learn from that. And it's like trial by fire, the school of life. And ultimately, you end up, in different places. But I must say, yeah, leadership, if you know, even if I'm sure I've made mistake and I keep gonna make mistake, when you end up with the right team, it's everything. Otherwise, you're a king without a crown.
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, you put a lot of great stuff in there. The just the ability to find good people, right? How much of that is you finding them or them finding you? I mean, and how do you know when you have someone good until you put them to the fire? It's so much, so
Man.
much.
if you think I'm giving good answers, you're giving really good questions. Let's be honest.
Oh,
I think we can write a book with every single one of your questions. It's like it
yeah,
could be a proper book about the evolution of design as well, and the world of
yeah,
leadership and creativity. But so I'm going to try to break down your question into different
okay,
aspects. Finding the right people is definitely key, and you make mistakes, but I came to the conclusion that it's finding the right mentality, the right personality. Uh, if I had someone that comes to me and is a curious mind and is eager and he has a bit of resilience and ideas, and is willing to learn, I can teach them everything. It's fine, and it goes fast. Like in 6 months they learn more than 3 or 4 years at school.
yeah,
And I've been lecturing at San Francisco Marketing MBA innovation level, so I know what's required there. But what you learn there is not what you need for the reality of life or an
mhm,
agency work, right? But you can teach them so fast. And if you hire people that have all the skills on paper but are like set in their ways, narrow-minded, or driven by ego, you will struggle, and it can spoil the whole basket like a rotten apple. So that's the first thing. The second thing is about retention. You need to respect your team. You need to feed them with creative brick that inspire them. And you need to lead them in a gentle way, I guess. Even though I'm French, I'm not always diplomatic. But it's about having everyone inspired for the in the right way and for the right things. And then the other thing is and that's very specific to my company.
mhm,
Um, is I created what I call a cross-disciplinary company, where I hire talent from different cultures, different countries, with different background in design, and they can be fashion designers, they can be product designers, graphic, UX, UI, but I train them to work together as a full unit on any brief that comes our way. So they all learn from each other, and ultimately 2 years later, they all become design ninjas. So they can do everything. Then you can focus on strategy, on creativity, on narrative, and you can deliver with consistency across every single touch point of communication and design. And one of the great things that happens is it removes ego from the team. They
mhm,
finally understand that it's for the greater good of what they deliver as a whole, you know. And so that's something that took a long time. I've been doing that business for like over 20 years, different iteration, had to shift many times. But yeah, here we are. And at the moment, I think we are at the peak with the team. So, and great client, great projects. So looking forward to the future.
yeah. One of my really good friends is he's in the design world. He's an engineer, and what he does is he designs how do we move this product? What goes around the product to get it from here out of the factory and to in someone's hands? It's in a box.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
wrapped up in a little bag, and the bag's in a box.
Yeah.
How do you ship less air? All that kind of stuff. And there's a real art of elegance there where you want something that looks good, but you also don't want to waste money shipping air or shipping 11 instead of 12 whatever it's going to be. And that requires him to be multilingual and multicultural. So he might have to work with a Chinese company who's going to manufacture this thing or send the raw goods over to Mexico. He has to speak
Yeah.
Spanish so he can understand the people on the line. Also, that he can take this artistic vision and turn it into a real viable thing and know what it's going to cost and how to make it. I mean, all of that goes into this design world. And we just get this box and tear it apart and throw it in the trash.
Exactly. No, it's an interesting comment you're making. That's probably why I trained as a product designer and industrial designer in my previous life, because it's about knowing how to make things and how to deliver it to the world. Like most people, when they ask, "Oh, what do you do?" I'm a designer. So, "Oh, you do some doodles here and there." Yeah, yeah. It starts with a doodle, but no, it starts with an idea. But you're supposed to be able to deliver it to an audience, and
Yeah.
in a safe way, which is something that people don't always think about, in a way that attract them. Which is like the famous unpacking unboxing moment, that became trendy, or the
Yeah.
famous 6 second of the Apple, packaging with the iPhone. So that's part of the skills we have as well, and that's why I created a team that share all those moments, all those skills, so we can deliver from ideation all the way to production.
Yeah. How much are you guys concerned with, like, any brand of new liquor is going to want their own exotic bottle because they want their bottle to be part of their brand. How much does that design how much is it limited by cost? Like, hey, this bottle just does not going to ship well. We have to make something that's, how do you deal with those kind of conundrums where you want the style, but the style becomes expensive?
Again, an interesting question. There's many way to answer that. I mean, the first one is like cost is driven by complexity,
Mm,
by provenance, so where you have it manufactured, by quantities, if you and by the way you manufacture thing as well, right?
mm,
If you produce in China, manufacture in China, famously, the cost is lower, but you need to produce a lot, right? The mold is still very expensive if you do, for instance, injection molding or things like that, right? And so after that, you need to think about, if it's limited quantity, then you're probably going to have things that are like 200 units, and I've done projects like that. Then it's done by hand. You're talking craft and not mass manufacturing. So everything is like relative, but the issue doesn't happen linked up with that. It happens when the brief has been badly managed and the client is not in the know, right?
mm.
So if he wants bells and whistle but doesn't understand that there's a cost to it, if he doesn't understand his audience, if he wants something that is for the luxury market, but he wants to resell it at £13, then it's not going to work. So yeah, a project as a whole needs to be understood by all parties.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there's
Boy,
ways. There's
and
always way to, like design is part of it as well. You can make things less expensive to manufacture and still look actually even more premium.
right.
And sometimes you have trends as well. Minimalism came from that as well. The
Yeah.
Japanese and the Swedish are amazing at that optimization.
Yeah. You said the word injection molding earlier, and that's worth going back to, because when something is designed, whether it's made out of metal or plastic, whatever it is, there's a machine that's often custom built to create that thing. And so I'm thinking about, again, my same friend Dave. He works for a international engineering firm that makes things for other companies and helps them buy other things. And so they were moving locations, and they had this giant clamshell. It's vertically aligned, but it must have cost $500,000 to make, and it's all metal and it's exotic, and it just is a beautiful looking piece of machinery. But now it's
Hmm.
obsolete because they don't make that case anymore, or whatever the thing is that they shipped in there. And as they were moving out, I'm like, can I take that thing to the recycler for you? Because it was so heavy, so big. Just the task of physically moving it is expensive, because I'm going to charge them, I don't know, $500 to get that thing from standing up in a corner where they have to get it out of here, to in my truck and into a recycler. You know, at least $500 to move that thing. It's so crazy. So these machines, we say injection molding. When you say that, you and I both know there's a lot of cost in that whole thing. And once that product reaches end of life, and that machine goes away, it no longer matters anymore, even though it was $500,000 and took a long
Hmm.
time to make and was hyper precise.
Yeah, I mean, definitely, and this is why, when they go for that kind of production, the forecast is to produce, from 200,000 to a few million pieces. Otherwise, this
Right.
is not worth it. After you obviously, need to talk about, recycling, the cost even of the material and what you do with
Yeah.
it when you dispose of it is important. So, but not everyone thinks about that. So
I was going
it's
to
a,
say,
it's a,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. How much of that is taught in design school? Like how do you make a product that keeps in mind, and how much do you have to keep in mind all of these things? We're talking about, you know, a a a well-engineered machine that made a bunch of parts for years, and then it stopped being useful, and so it became waste. But how much do you
I
have to
think
worry about
if
that?
if you were to think about how can you upgrade that machine to stay relevant in the future, then that's already a win, right?
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about, as a designer, even when you study, um, there's a lot of greenwashing, obviously, like sustainable design course and things like that. But I think it's linked with integrity and value and morals. It's up to us to educate ourselves, not even as designers, but as people. Um, I think it also, like, knowledge comes with a curse as well. I know a bit too
Yeah.
much about packaging and product design, so every time I look at something, I'm like, oh, come on, guys, So sometimes it's like heartbreaking, So,
Yeah.
but it's up to everyone. You don't have to study design to educate yourself in how things are made. I think it's interesting that we live now in a society where we have with internet and everything, like, the encyclopedia of the world, and information is right there. And I think we seek less and less truth. We just try to choose a side without knowing the full extent of our choices.
Boy, yeah. You're making it easy for me to ask big questions because you're giving great answers. Yeah, and how do you manage that? How do you find your sweet spot that you're comfortable with? Because truth is great, but truth also, like, when I used to do my job, doing spy stuff, if I'm bringing back bad news, which is part of what you do, right? In my world, I'm trying to help the commander win more and lose less. Well, if we're
Hmm.
losing, that's filled with bad news. And so when I come back saying, "Hey, we're getting destroyed right here," or whatever it is in that process, that makes me bad news Turner. And so when I show up, people don't want to hear from me. They don't want to see me. So I have to now figure out how to survive in that organization and remain relevant as I try to help them lose less. Or the other
But
side of the
it,
negative is the enemy winning more. How do we make those two things stop without bad news? Sorry, continue, please.
it's a very interesting way to take it, and I think I might differ in my opinion. Um, and maybe it's a difference of culture there, but win more and lose less. It depends what you qualify as winning and losing. Like,
Sure.
what about starting by doing good and not compromising on key value, even if you might not win on paper on the dollar more, but you might lose less in your integrity and your values. So
Sure.
it starts from the way you brief yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and understand what I'm saying. I'm trying to boil this down to the essence of what it is that I try to do, right? So
Mm,
winning and losing, it is relative, right? And that's why I throw on the other side of the enemy, winning less and losing more. But hopefully all of us going in a positive direction. Yeah,
yeah.
that's tough to achieve. And especially because I end up in my world focusing on us more than them, because us is a bigger problem. And again, as I focus on that, that makes me a danger internally because I'm forcing us to go in the right direction more often by
Uh-huh.
the information that I provide.
Yeah. And obviously, democracy doesn't allow too much of that, but it's
No.
controversial.
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
the,
Yeah.
the
Everybody
thing is,
loves
like,
democracy. Yeah. Go ahead.
yeah,
Go ahead.
in my world, what's very interesting is a lot of my work and my job as with my clients is mainly education.
Mm,
Honestly, you have to educate your client all the time, and you learn in the same way. Like, I've stopped designing without reframing the brief even. I've changed completely the methodology that I run my project with, in order to make sure that we have an agreement before we even start. And it takes,
yeah.
like a week of workshop and um, diving deep with them, and then gaining that trust, so you can actually change also their mind, because most people don't know what they want either. The other thing as well is that there's a triangulation between a client that comes to me and my team to deliver something to their audience, but they tend to forget their audience. They think about the audience as the cash cow, and but they don't have the knowledge on how to reach them. And for instance, I always say, like, I'm not designing for myself. I'm not even designing for you, AI, my clients. And they tend to look at me like shocked, and I'm like, no, I'm designing for your audience. I'm just translating your ideas to your audience. And suddenly it makes sense. So even like tiny little things like that change the perspective, and allow you to actually have a bit more control on the outcome.
Yeah. Boy, that's smart. Yeah, that's our worlds colliding right there. I focus on all of the specs, respect, perspective, introspection, all of these
Mm,
angles. Because
mm,
if I can understand that farmer's camera and how it sees me, how it sees us, whatever, I can better communicate that back to the big machine. Because wherever the
yeah.
US goes, we create instability if we care to see it. If we don't care to see it, then it still happens. We just don't know. And so a lot of what I
Mm,
do
mm,
is try to put the camera in other points of view, even internally for us, and say, hey, are we doing this right? And that doesn't sound like spy work, but it turns out like that's how you improve the performance of a unit is to understand all these different points of view. And again, that's not comfortable work. It also assumes that I'm getting stuff right at a pace that I can't sustain too, because I definitely make
mm,
mistakes.
mm.
These are challenging environments to work in, which must relate to what you guys do. You're trying to translate things from your client's unclear vision into yours so that you can understand how to communicate it to an audience. There's a lot of noise in those channels.
Yeah, most definitely. But I think we share the same vision there, the two of us, because for me it's like perspective is the key and collaboration is the key. And that's probably why I created such a unit with a team, is because then otherwise you're in a vacuum. Even when I communicate with my clients, and obviously
Mm.
as the founder and as well as the creative director, you come with some sort of authority, or they assume you do, and you have to have that authority in order to communicate. But I always make sure that they understand I don't own the truth. I'm only coming with my knowledge and my perspective, right?
Right.
And then we can communicate. And again, it goes back to what we're living in society at the moment, where we are getting polarized and we choose a side instead of listening to each other, right?
Sure. Yeah.
While I always refer to philosophy in that sense. That's maybe my French background, where philosophy is not finding the right answer, but asking the right question, meaning
Right.
that you need to listen to many perspectives in order to actually come to some sort of informed conclusion.
Yeah. Yeah. It's you talked about trust earlier, and this is a good pivot here, because when you look at these kind of problems, if you're trying to focus on trust, then you can start to get away from the polarity and get a little more towards the middle. And you're not supposed to be comfortable in this world if you're trying to broker this stuff. But that's what your job is, it seems like to me. And that's what my job was
Hmm.
to be I call it discomfort, not miscomfort. This is a comfort that I can learn because it's comfortable for you, or it's comfortable for that person. So how do I understand their level of comfort? Well, I've got to get uncomfortable first so I can use their cultural path to accomplish my goal. I could go to
Mm,
France and say, "Here's how we do this," and then the French person's going to say, "But we do it the French way." So I'd rather
mm,
accomplish the goal via the French way when I'm in France, because why would I invent a new path, especially when the French way is so wonderful and has proven to
mm,
be good
mm,
in so many ways. Now, it doesn't mean I
mm,
can't contribute to that path and maybe put a little circle right here and but but I've got to think about it in terms of I don't get to be comfortable, and I want to understand how they would do it. So I understand, because I build trust by understanding their goals and their means, their mechanism for making decisions and executing them. If I don't start there and I just dominate that by saying we're going to meet every day at 5 a.m. and we're going to work for 12 hours, and at the end of the day we'll have good work, that doesn't work for everybody. So how do I do this thing that's exceptionally hard, but make it less hard by using your way or their way or whatever way that is? And that's how I try
mm,
to build.
mm. It's I think when it's interesting you use the word discomfort. I always think that discomfort is brings abrasion, but it's linked with fear, and that's
Mm,
why if you gain trust and you kind of showcase the fact that with trust you will solve their problem, and the problem that they don't have an answer to and that they don't understand, then
sure.
you remove the fear, and then it becomes a lot more fluid. So we go back to the flow again. We started the
Right.
conversation that way.
Yeah, the flow. All right, since we're back to the flow, I kind of jumped on you and asked a bunch of questions. Do you want to re-engage it and start the flow again? Do you want to ask me anything, or what directions do we go
Well,
next?
yeah, because obviously, like we clearly share a lot of similarity and common thoughts. How did you start your podcast? What was the trigger? What are you trying to? Who are you trying to reach? What are you trying to achieve? Yeah, tell me a
Yeah.
bit more about you.
But yeah, I started because I came back from all this war and I wanted to tell stories. And I had a radio and TV degree. And I'm like, I should put this thing to use. I have all these experiences. And also, became an excellent interviewer because I've talked to farmers, warlords, commander, all these people. And so I'm like, how do I put this to use and create something? Because I am a creator on the inside, and I wanted to do more of that. So that was sort of how we got started on it. And then it just happened that I'm also, because of my spy work, I'm good at networking. And so I can meet people. And then all of a sudden I've met all these people. And then I realized that in that network, there's a lot of value. And so I just kind of just kept going forward because I was kind of just doing the thing that I've done professionally for a lot of years, but just with a different focus. So same tools, just different product. And I didn't know where I was going. I had some ideas and some clues, but it's an emerging market, and who knows? And did I want to do this kind of work? What work did I want to do every day? And this is sort of the product of that 10 plus years later, where I get to have these incredible conversations. Guests come to me often, like in terms of like, hey, let's have this person on the show. And then I say yes. My job is to say yes to everything I can say yes to, even if it's scary, because there's growth in that fear because of what I've learned. Like, hey, if you're going to talk about a political issue, it's okay. You can do that in a way that's healthy. How do we have more positive conversations? And so where am I going? I think ultimately I'm going to become a film producer, whether it's documentaries or movies, because I've just connected all these people that do all these things, and I've got bridges that I can build because of what I've done. And so I can take an author who has an incredible story, who doesn't have a real reliable path to making it into a movie, and I can work on filling that gap by developing ideas to make them marketable, take them to that market, try to get them made, then take them to the next market and to the next market, and then all of a sudden they're on Netflix or whatever it's going to be. So that appears to be where I'm headed, but I'm still building that bridge. And when you stand on the edge of that bridge and there's rebar and then nothing, you're like, oh, am I really doing this?
I know the feeling. Yeah, I think you just highlighted exactly where we connect. And our friend Teresa is the same. Like I think the three of us are storytellers at heart, and whether we tell our stories, like you're allowing me to tell my story somehow, or we tell someone else's story. With my design work or even publishing with Teresa, where we team up together, we tell someone else's story, right? Which is exactly what you offered to me today.
Yeah, yeah. When you
So
go to
thank
a
you for
party,
that.
you're welcome. It's just wonderful. I love how much this is all great. And again, credit to Teresa who makes these incredible things happen for me. So she's blown my mind twice this month, and with guests, it's incredible. And you can't lose sight of that. The power of your network to turn a light on and say, look at this incredible thing. And you're like, that came out of
Yeah.
nowhere, but it didn't. It came from all this work and all this love and all this stuff that we invest in
And trust.
combined
And
worlds.
trust.
Yeah, trust. For sure.
Because
Yeah.
it's pre-filtered, it's like shared ethos and value again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. And here's what I know about trust is I trust Teresa. And when she says you should have Boris on your show, I just say yes. I don't worry about it. I don't, and I just start on step 7 as opposed to, okay, let me do my whole process gets short-circuited because I trust
Yeah.
Teresa to deliver something because she knows me. And we've known each other for, gosh,
And vice
longer than
versa. That's
most
how I
married would
jump
admit.
on your call, It works
Yeah.
exactly the same way. And also it's what makes it fun,
Yeah.
enjoyable instead of a chore, right?
Right. Yeah. And the thing is, I don't want to do is when I'm asking my questions, my job is not to ask you the questions that anybody can answer. It's the same thing in the spy world. If I go to the same meeting as you, I'm going to go to have that conversation over there. And when I bring you back information, it'll be something that nobody else could have gotten you because I'm a professional at this. I can look at a room and say, I need to go talk to someone else because everyone's talking to this guy, but what's that person over there doing? Let's find out what they're doing and see if I can add some richness to that experience in terms of what happened in that room on that day.
That's how you get the right content. A bit of depth and richness, definitely. So have you interviewed Teresa before? She's been on the screen.
I've had Teresa on the show before, and yeah, she's been on, gosh, I don't know, several times. But when she has her new book out, or anytime, frankly, anytime she wants to come on, all she's got to do is snap her fingers, and I'm going to come running because I just adore everything she does. But yeah, she's been
Well,
on the show. Yeah.
Let's have the two of us when we release the next book that we're collaborating on. Then that would be a blast.
Yeah. Well, and I love to collaborate, and I would even say amplify. I would do things in my world where, again, okay, so I think you'll appreciate this. I would try to amplify or change perspective and do the same thing from a different point of view. So we would often show up at some shake's house, and there's like, hey, here's 20 dudes, it really like in a biker gang. They're all jacked up on creatine, and these guys are all awesome warriors, right? But these are warriors coming to your house, and I'm like, this has got to be uncomfortable for these sheikhs to have a bunch of young 20-year-old dudes who are infantry guys wearing glasses and helmets, and they're huge because they work out and they've got weapons. And so I would try to tone down my appearance. I would take my gear off right away so they would know, like, I was like them. If it's safe for them to stand there in their shakely garb, it's safe for me to stand here in my peak getup. And which looks a lot like this: a t-shirt, ball cap, and that's it. I would take all my other gear off. But that allowed me to start to see from their point of view and then execute from their point of view. So then I started saying, if these guys are important, and they are, how do I get them on our camp and act like they're important? All of us on the American side. So I wouldn't do this with everybody, and I would work on trust first, but I would take that shake and I'd say, be my guest on the American camp and let's have a meeting here. And they'd say, you're going to let me come on the American camp? And I'm like, of course. You're in charge of all these thousands of people in your life. You're an important leader. It's like, well, I know that. I'm like, well, important leaders come to our place all the time. So you come and be my guest. And we'd walk that dude on. We wouldn't search him. We would just stand there and say, welcome, sir. And he'd get the salute and get treated like the VIP that he was. And then I would take him into the American dining facility and I'd say, have some ice cream, feast your eyes about this place. Look at all this food and all this fabulous. I'm showing him my palace. And they're like, what the hell? How? You guys have all this stuff, is air conditioning, like all this stuff, constant electricity. And I'm blowing their minds with our abundance and trying to show them, hey, we have all this stuff. We are good people. We're not just these warriors who show up out of the blue. And then I'd feed him and I'd stuff his pocket full of muffins. I would talk to my interpreter first and I would say, lay it on. Just let him know everything here. He can have whatever he wants. Just let him know it's okay and take a whole bunch of food home because who cares, right? We have so much food, so much abundance. And these guys had plenty of food, but I wanted them to see that he was my guest and I wanted to treat him like an honored guest. Then to amplify that, I would have our commander. I would say to the commander, hey, I've got a really important guy coming by around 3:30. Come by the dining facility. And that commander would come by and be like, who is this? I'm like, oh, this is Sheikh Bob. And he'd be like, Sheikh Bob, oh, it's a pleasure to meet you. And he would do his job because now we have the most important man in the region because an infantry commander is the boss. And now those guys know each other. And now they've seen each other. No one else can pull that off. And no one else would dare to bring that person onto the camp. But I've just done that. And even if the guy's a warlord, I don't care about that. What I care is all this value that I've put in bringing that person into this spot. And I've drawn our worlds closer together. I've drilled a hole through the wall so we can kind of see each other a little bit more.
Yeah, I resonate with that, man. Like for me, it's about approaching people as human, with all the differences. And the first thing is acknowledgement and respect, So yeah, I hear you.
Yeah, that was like rocket fuel for me because now what happens when I go into town and Sheikh Bob is talking to me, we become closer now. I've done them this huge honor and showed him, all this stuff. It's like a state visit, really. And then they'll say, hey, who you should meet? You should meet Sheikh somebody else. And nobody's met that guy because he doesn't want to be met. But now I've been introduced by them to them. And whew, boy, that really changes things. And so I would look for these opportunities and take the risk of allowing this great thing to happen. And that typically it lowered the temperature in the region and allowed us to be a little more human than we ever possibly could. But this is invisible to us on our side. They just like see Pete doing, like, what's Pete talking to somebody else in the chow hall? Meanwhile, I'm just lowering the tension in the area. I'm getting access to more information. And here's the thing that I often say is if I'm going to go out into a neighborhood and find out where the bombs are, the last way to do that, whether I'm in Lyon or in Aqaba, is to say, where are the bombs? Where are the bombs? I don't care what language you're in, what culture you're in. You can't start with the thing that you want, whether you're trying to get a girl to like you or get someone to not blow you up. You don't start with that question.
Totally. That's why I never understood why the cops always blare the sirens when they try to catch someone. But that's a different subject again.
Yeah. How does that work in your world? Like, how do you take the other perspective and put it to work so that you can create something that wasn't imaginable to your client, whether they're just like, how in the world did we get here? And you're like, well, I just came in the other door.
No, that bears a bit of thinking. I think the first thing is, that they are reaching out for a reason, like whether they want to acknowledge it or not, they don't have the knowledge that you have or the experience. But also sometimes we don't have the knowledge of the culture that we're approaching or even the project or the technology that, we deal with like some very complex projects sometimes. The reality is that it's linked with experience and methodology and keeping an open mind as well. It's not hard to do research, The other thing as well is like perspective is everything. If you combine knowledge and experience from your client, your audience, and yourself and your team, then you have a winning recipe. On our side, like we pride ourselves to have very different projects from one to the other because it also means that we are not we don't have a house style. Everything is different. We design purposely. Everything is bespoke. Everything is like attention to detail, carefully done. And so a lot of research, a lot of strategy, a lot of listening, and yeah, you need that collaboration.
Yeah, boy. You don't just have a style for the house. I love that. You're
Yeah,
adapting
yeah.
to that way. Do you know when something's not your guys' style?
Sorry, say that again.
Do you know when something isn't your guys' style? Like if you can't, like, that's not where we go. That's not. I mean, do you have a limit where you say no to things that you don't think is your sweet spot?
Well, the thing is, like, we tend to deal with innovation projects, whether it's from startup all the way to global international,
Hmm.
but we don't just redo things. It's yeah, we deal with innovation, from the get-go, from the beginning. So we have a lot of creative freedom, and we have to be trusted. Like, people come to us for that, for our knowledge in there. So it's not so much like, oh, they come with a product and it looks ugly and we're like, oh, that's not for us. No, I mean, if it looks ugly, it's why they come to us as well. Or if it doesn't work, fix it, whether it's through engineering or design or both. So it's not so much of an issue. When we say no to things is when there's a market or product that we don't agree with morally. And sometimes you discover that along the line and you stop working with those clients in the future. But yeah, that's when we say no. The rest is up
Okay.
to us to actually make it better.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. Those are pretty good limits to getting that far out wide and to be comfortable out there. That's incredible. When you We've talked about trust several times.
Mm,
I would submit that I don't get to decide when we have trust. I have to test for it. I have to, in my world, I have to, um, you know, I have to extend credit. I'm from America. I'm in France. I'm in England. I'm in Iraq. I've got to extend trust to you because I'm the person from outside, and I've got to say, I'm here to help you. When can I show up? Whatever it is, and then I have to elevate in my world. I have to elevate the risk of that trust, and then I have
yeah.
to not just assume that it's there. I have to see the behaviors of the person
Hmm.
saying, here's what trust looks like. And so it's up to
Hmm.
them whether they trust me or not. And it's up
Hmm.
to me to understand and test and make sure that what I think I'm hearing, I'm hearing.
Hmm. But I'm sure you've, like me, you've developed your own methodology that's, to experience at
Yeah.
work for you. And
Yeah.
and they don't always work for, you cannot repeat that. It's not an equation, right? It's your
Right.
methodology. And same thing throughout the years, I developed like a methodology that works for me and for my team and for my clients. And,
Yeah.
like I'm a people's person. I need to meet someone before I work with them. And,
Yeah.
you define your parameters as well. I always tell them, remember, I choose you as much as you choose me, and people are
Hmm.
not used to that. And it's not being condescending. It's actually saying, hey, we are at the same level, we're here for each other. Your success is my success and vice versa. And like even like those simple sentences, if they get it, then you're already off to a good start. If they don't get it, it's a filter. It's fine.
Right.
We don't have to take everyone, we don't have to work with everyone. Then the other factor for me is, I'm a firm believer in the concept of paying it forward. Be
Mm.
kind first, be selfless first and see the reaction. Because
Yeah.
if the reaction is amazing, same thing, you got something there for greatness. And if the reaction is not great, then again, it's a filter, you move on. So, you said it the same way, you need to give first, you don't ask for trust.
Right.
You give first and you
Yeah.
receive it
Yeah.
back, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
it's the same thing with everything.
Yeah. Boy. Yeah. And I try to just extend respect. And even if I know something about culture, like I know, let's say I know something about what the culture of London is, and when I see you next week, I'm not going to assume that I know that. And the way I say this best is I'm never going to try to out London a Londoner. I'm just not. I'm going to let you guide me because we know that London's full of neighborhoods, different accents, and different everything. And that's just for the English folks. Then you bring in the folks from all over the world, and there's a lot of Londons in London. And so why would I presume to know more than you all do? And so I just learn from it, and I don't have to inculcate fully right away. I don't want to ape, but I do want to understand so I can better see who you guys are, how you do things, and maybe why you do those things.
Yeah, it's an interesting notion. I mean, it is true, and that's the beauty of London. I think the Brits are a minority in London, right? Whether they like it or not, and it's full
Right.
of pockets, as you said. And the beauty of London is that you cannot grasp it. It's so multicultural. You move from one neighborhood to the other, and it's completely different. Like you're traveling to different countries sometimes. But also, like, you need to. to prepare yourself. Immersion is the beauty of it, like being curious and discovering a city like a child. Wherever I travel, I just like to walk and get lost. Getting lost is the best
Yeah.
way to feel something instead of, the worst thing is grabbing a camera and doing the touristic trail, and you will know nothing about London if you do that. Like
Right.
if you travel anywhere else, it's the same thing. Get lost and immerse yourself, and that's
Oh,
again is the flow. Is the flow.
yeah. Yeah. I talk about the concept of just learning how to be a great guest, and just, um, yeah, show me everything. Show me what you think is great. Feed me what you think tastes good. Show me this place, and
Mm,
just accept these gifts. Because if someone came to my hometown, I would take you. I would take you over to Gravity Hill. There's a place where you drive, and there were some murders committed right around, very famous
mm,
murders. And I'm like, the ghosts of those kids are here, and they're pushing our car up this hill. And I do this whole thing, man. And so that people are like, wow, this was incredible. We're just on a country road, but you turned it into this story. So that's what I want to allow other people to do, to be great. And it's a
mm.
hokey, corny thing, right? But they are going to enjoy it. I've worked hard to make sure. And so I take them to my favorite restaurants, all these things. And man, learning to be a great guest, which kind of goes against our adult sensibilities, is to say, yeah, whatever you want to do. I don't need any control over this. I just want to see this world through your eyes.
Mm. But yeah, it's I resonate with that. When it's not for everyone, not everyone has the capacity or ability, because when you do that, you're making yourself vulnerable. That you're allowing them to know more about you through your choices
Right.
within the city. And when you're in London, I guess it's the same with New York and all those big cities. You have lots of friends that come and visit, and they expect you to do like the touristic trail, London Eye and this and that and whatever.
Right.
And I always tell them, it's like, well, you know where you want to go, right? So you don't need me.
Yeah.
Go and do it. It's fine. I've done it 10,000 times actually. I've probably done it less than any tourist. That's still
Right.
stuff that like that I actually don't want to do. However, if you
Right.
want to see London through my eyes, and then it doesn't mean you're going to like it, but you will know a bit more
Yeah.
about me and why I stay here and how I navigate that city.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm just to amplify what you're saying. That's the ride I want. And
Mm.
I don't mind the touristic things. I'll be down by Dirtle Door, so I'm gonna go poke over
Yeah,
the
but you
side of
don't
the
need
cliff.
me
I'm
for
gonna
that.
Right. Yeah.
You
I'm
don't.
just gonna.
Yeah.
I barely need me for that. I'm gonna look over and be like, I have seen it, and then I'm gonna get back to doing something else. Like I was telling you, I'm gonna probably do a jujitsu workout when I'm in town.
Hmm.
As one, because that's just cool to do, and I don't need anybody for that. But yeah, the other things, that's what I want. I want that real experience to do those things. And I guess the other thing I would add to this is, when I go to this conference I'm going to go to, it's a spy conference. I'm going to talk about, like, you've been assigned to go to London, for example. What are the things that I need to do? One of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to read up on London so I have some awareness, and then I'm going to wipe all of that from my brain and just be blank slated and go
Hmm.
in and
Hmm.
start to really see it. So yes, I'm familiar, but I'm not going to rely on that familiarity. I'm going to rely on your familiarity, and
Yeah.
then his familiar, and all those folks, to really bring myself into a better view of what London really is today
Mm.
in this moment in time.
Yeah. Yeah. You don't want to be clueless. You want to be informed, but still open to everything that may
Yeah.
happen. Definitely. Yeah. Well, I'm
Uh,
looking forward to see you in London soon then, next week.
yeah, I'm excited about this. What else should we get in? We talked about trust building. We've talked about, like, the balance of art and profitability and everything. What else is interesting to you?
Oh gosh. That's too much of an open-ended question, that one. Uh where do I start? I don't know. Like reframe that question maybe.
Well, okay, when you got up this morning and you've got your day in front of you, what jumps in your mind first? What's the most important, most interesting thing?
It's still a very difficult question. It depends. Like I'm an insomniac. I barely sleep. My brain is always active. Today I opened my eyes and it was sunny and brisk outside, and autumn is beautiful in London. And I'm like, okay, I have to do all of that today, and I'm gonna go for a swim first in an open
Mhm.
swimming pool and at the Lido, and that's what I've done. Set me up for the day. Was in a great mood. Went to the studio, met my head of ops, and spent the whole day working. But it's a reset or a different way to handle your day. But tomorrow might be completely different.
Yeah, we live in a world like that. You said swimming. I love swimming. One of my favorite things about that practice is some days I'm going to go out and I'm going to count laps. And just the practice of trying to count laps is hard because if you do 50 laps, you're like, is that 48 or is that 52? I don't. So like just counting is forces your brain into a different zone. And then there's times if I'm comfortable enough with it, well, I'll just lose track and I'll just swim for
Mm,
swimming's sake. I might even invent a new stroke because like my shoulder's hurting. And so I'll do like a
mhm,
reverse
mhm,
kind of,
mhm.
but I get in the pool. It's impossible to come out of the pool in a bad mood. It's impossible to you can't bring all that stuff back out of the pool. It's cleansing for me and it's a therapy session.
Oh,
And
it's
then if I'm,
therapeutic. Yeah.
yeah, it's so
Definitely, it's like they've done some.
yeah,
Sorry to interject. They've done some studies. After eight, like for me, it's roughly after 800 meters to 1K.
yeah,
You get into the same state of Zen than a Buddhist monk.
I'm
And I've
sure.
noticed that for me, it's like it allows me to process everything and all the mess in my head, whether negative, positive, or hurtful, but it doesn't affect me. It's just like, and you leave, and it's so clear and you're so light. So it's a. I'll say that to everyone listening here. It's a great way to start your day.
Yeah.
And we're
I will
both
do
martial
that.
artists, so we understand that as well, right?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing I was going to say is when you're in the pool and you find time, you can relax. Like I'll do this thing where I'll just express all my air, just sink down for however long, and I try to just stay calm as long as possible. I'm not going to drown, so I'm just going
Mm.
down, and you just become weightless, and I just get into that zone. And I sometimes do it after my workout, but sometimes in the middle of it, I don't know. I'll just kind of let the spirit move me with that. But it takes that zenness for me and it really opens it up where I can kind of leave all of this stuff that's in my frame and be somewhere else for a while. And it's a marvelous experience. So people think like, oh, you're just swimming laps. And I'm like, oh, there's so much more going on.
Yeah,
Once your brain purges, and if it's 800 meters, I totally believe that because you're busy working by then. You're fully warmed up and doing it.
yeah. And yeah. I mean, I love what you just said. You become weightless, and
Yeah.
like especially when like you're an entrepreneur or you're busy. Yeah, you're busy all the time, right? And
Yeah.
you bear the weight on your shoulder. I mean, this is an idiom that has been said for a reason. And becoming weightless for like half an hour or whatever it takes you is quite incredible. And going swimming is probably the only time where I realize I'm actually taking time for myself, like
Yeah.
both physically and internally, right? So
Yeah.
yeah.
What stroke do you do most commonly?
So for me, it's crawl
Okay.
because I'm a lane swimmer. But I had it's an interesting one. I'm from the ocean originally, so southwest coast of France. I'm like a dolphin in the waves, like I like big waves and the elements, facing the fact that humility and nature, like you go there, you can die, and if you're humble enough and you bob around and you follow the current and the wave, actually everything is fun, right? So
Yeah.
I moved to London and I miss the sea a lot. And I was, I hate people. I don't want to go in the swimming pool and the chlorine and all that. And so I'm an amazing swimmer in current and big waves. But then at the time, you put me in a pool and I was like, I couldn't do two laps, you know?
Wow.
So I had to teach myself to swim properly in a swimming pool. And so, after a while, you find your own rhythm and your own things. And for me, yeah, like the front crawl is the way. And yeah, I just find it like effortless. But
Yeah.
it's for me, it's like so different swimming in a swimming pool and in the ocean.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. Yeah. Because you don't know where if you're swimming to go somewhere in the ocean or a bay or anywhere, you just don't know how far you've gone. Like you swim and you swim and you can really get, you can get into your
But
head.
I think the thing with, I mean, there's a difference as well with like, flat water or Mediterranean or lake, But when you're talking waves and currents, the first thing you learn, or I've learned at a young age, you cannot fight the elements.
Right.
You have to dance with it. Otherwise,
Yeah.
that's when you drown.
Yeah.
So, and when it's like in a swimming pool, yeah, ultimately it's like so safe and so clear, right?
Yeah. Yeah. You can see down, you can see everything. And you have to
Mm,
surrender all of that in an ocean or a lake. You just, yeah,
mm,
you're out there doing it. The other thing about ocean swimming that I think about is how insignificant I am in this body of water. I
exactly.
mean, the
Yeah.
farthest anybody's ever swam out, it's just not very far. So if you, I mean, just the fact if you swim a mile in a pool, you're a very small group of people, because just people don't swim that far. Now you think about an ocean and you're just a coconut floating in the water, basically. And boy,
if you're in a pool, you're still in land. That's the thing. Surrounded by humans,
yeah,
surrounded by structure, right? And
yeah,
I used to be a massive sailor and doing like long trip, open water sailing, and that's something that I realized is when you're in a boat in the ocean or in like deep sea, and you look at Earth and at the horizon, you're the only one having 180 perspective or
yeah,
view to the world of human.
yeah,
Otherwise, you look at the sea, what you see is the horizon. That's it, right? So you need to be on the other side. And that's the difference between a pool as well and the ocean. You are in the element. A pool is still self-controlled by human. It's a completely different feeling. And I
right,
had an experience when I was like maybe 14, and we used to kind of sail with a crew of youngsters, like from Sardinia or Corsica to Tunisia. And middle of the sea, like you sail three nights and 3 days, and it was like beautiful day, oily sea, and we lost one of the buoy. And one of the crew was a competitive swimmer in swimming pool. And first
mm,
instinct, she just jumped out of the sailing boat and like start crawling and was super fast, reached the buoy and stayed there. And not realizing, obviously, by the time we pulled the sail down and we turn around, the boat is tiny and she's in the middle of nowhere.
yeah,
And when we found her, she was having a complete panic attack because being a professional swimmer in a swimming pool is completely different. She, for the first time in her life, realized where she was and how
yeah,
insignificant she was, and completely freaked out, even though she was the best swimmer of us all.
yeah, yeah. There's a lot in that. When you get into open water and a boat disappears, you're gonna die. Like, I mean, that's what is coming up next. It's like you're in a desert and you've been abandoned by everybody. And
Yeah,
that's why when you're in a boat, it's not a question of if, like you immediately try to find that person. Where are they? And you hope to God you get to them in time because
yeah,
their life clock is the sand is going. Here you can grab them and turn the hourglass over and they're going to be fine. But it's yeah, and I'm not saying it's like it's the most dangerous thing in the world, but if you're sailing, like I know a bunch of solo sailors because of the show, and they'll come on and I'll say, how many times or how often do you feel like your life is on the line when you're solo sailing around the world or wherever they do? And they're like, oh my God, I can't even count how many times, you know. But they know that if they fall in, if they can't recover themselves, that's it. That's it. It's just it's
and
not.
that's where you better have a good team, and trust is important.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
and I wish more people that live inland, try to re-experience that feeling, because you will develop a lot more collaboration and
yeah.
humility.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that goes to that care and that team building is,
Yeah,
what it's like to have the boat disappear in the horizon. So how do you act that way in life when there isn't a boat to see? Like this is a project and it's getting distant for us. It's all right. We're going to turn back around and it's okay to restart or whatever that thing is, but you're conscious of that feeling, that panic that creeps up because you realize, oh, this is not going the way it's supposed to go. This is going to go bad. And you can fix that if you start to recognize that person missing right away, or whatever it is, whether it's, we're talking about a boat, but in a conference room, someone can go missing right in front of your eyes. They're sitting in front of you, but they are no longer there. They're terrified now. How do you go back, circle back and pick that person up out of that water?
you just try your best. I guess.
Yeah, yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
in everything with life, you just try your best.
Well, yeah, right. Yeah, absolutely. But if someone has less capacity or whatever it is, you can slow down, you can turn back around, you can say, hey, it's all right, whatever that thing is, because the goal is not to get there as fast as possible every single time. Sometimes that's the goal, but it's to get there in a way that makes sense and brings the whole crew along. It's not worth it to lose people
Yeah.
on the way in almost every case.
But I think this is where training is important, right? Like, awareness and
Mhm.
training. In that instance, I think that's the first time that lady realized the difference between the open water and the swimming pool. But I think, that trained her very fast.
Yeah. Well, let's wrap this thing up, I guess, because it looks like we're running out of time. Teresa's waving at me, I think. Anything you want to say in closing?
Well, to be honest, I came in almost blind, and it's been delightful. You're a fantastic host. You have like amazing questions. I think we could carry on, talking for like, till the morning.
Yeah.
So with a bottle of whiskey or a nice glass of red wine. I'm looking forward to see you in London and carry on all of that. But thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, everybody. I'll see you all tomorrow. Oh, actually, I won't see you tomorrow. I won't see you at all next week. I will see you guys.
Oh, you're in my country tomorrow, and then
that's right.
In London
that's
next.
Right.
All right. Thank you so much, Pete, and I'll see you very soon. That was a pleasure.
Likewise.